Добро пожаловать в нашем следующей панельной сессии. Прошу.
Welcome to our next panel session. All the speakers, please take your seats. This panel session is called Green Building Challenge. And I think the biggest challenge will be limiting speakers in terms of time. There will be a lot of interesting presentations, so I ask all the speakers to mind the time. I believe that our panel session is the most interesting session within this conference because we'll be listening to the results of the successful projects in green construction and green building. We can see that there are standards like and other standards. They are being more and more used within the society, within the cities, and more tools appear in the market, like One Planet Living and others. Health of the human is very important. Collaboration between the companies is very important. That's why I really like today's set of speakers, because these speakers are not going to share only to share the information about their successful projects, but they'll be covering a lot of interesting aspects of their activity. I'll briefly cover the list of today's presenters. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Guy Ames. I'm General Director for Planet 2030 and the co-founder of the Council on Green Construction. Alexander Remezov is the chairman of the Council on Environmentally Sustainable Architecture of the Union of Architectures. Jan Gehl is the Danish architect, city designer, and professor. Jacqueline Gibson from the UK is a consultant on sustainable development of the greenest museum and palace complex in Europe. Marika Ramsden from California. This is the regional director of bi-regional and leading consultants of the global platform on sustainable development, One Planet Living from California. Ekaterina Kuznetsova, Director General of the Green Office LLC and head of the project Laboratory of Green Offices. Sergei Monahov, Deputy Mayor of Tarusa, Polska region. Palle Bo Rasmussen, Danish architect, associated partner of KHR Architecture. Vincent Breck, director of the branch of L'Oréal LLC branch from French. Ilya Zavalev, Director General of HPBS Company. Dmitry Kapko, Chairman of the Committee of ABOK Green Construction. And the last, as we say in English, last but not the least, Dmitry Yurich Berezovsky, head of the board of Green Stroy Association. Now I give floor to Alexander for him to deliver his speech. Good afternoon. Could you put my presentation on the screen, please? I'm happy to welcome everyone who's here, all the colleagues and all the friends. I'm saying this on behalf of the Union of the Architects, and I'd like to share a couple of items regarding our approach to sustainable architecture. And I want to tell you about the last project that we have delivered. Could I have a clicker as well, please? So I'm going to tell you about the last project that we have completed this year. A very sustainable project, refurbishment. It was about the refurbishment of the building with quite a big area. So I'm going to tell you now. Okay, minor technical glitch. Okay, maybe while we are waiting for the clicker, you could switch the slides for us. Oh. Right. What kind of principles are we using in sustainable architecture? Well, as it's known, it's sustainable development based. It's about nature, economy, and society. And we have the following principles within these areas: environmental principle and anthropological. Environmental principle means about local diversity, about local approach, and anthropological principle stands for the internal state of the building or internal state of the city in terms of person's health and comfort. Speaking of economy, we have scientific and technological principle. In terms of society, we have social, cultural, and aesthetic principles. And I'm going to demonstrate how these principles have been used while refurbishing a building. So we have this building in Matishi area that's before the refurbishment. It used to house laboratories, offices, and canteen. And the building was the research center for resource R&D center for energy saving and waste management and other matters. So the idea was that this building should demonstrate the resource-saving approach and efficient use of secondary or recycled resources. It was supposed to become a center for environmental learning. It was supposed to house the interactive conference hall and other facilities. So, environmental principle here is demonstrated here by a lot of greenery, by resource saving, rainwater collection mainly. We were using recyclable materials, and we were using a lot of wood as the only reproducible resource, natural resource, reduction of CO2 emissions, and the maximum use of the secondary resources. Anthropological principle is demonstrated here by focusing on maintaining the comfort and preserving the health of a person working here. The quality of internal air, visual comfort, thermal comfort, acoustic comfort, use of environment-friendly materials, simplicity, and ergonomics. R&D principle here is demonstrated by using the cutting-edge technologies in the area of resource saving and energy efficiency. We use the heat pump here together with capillary mats that allow to reduce energy consumption 5 times compared to gas heating. Here we are using the solar collectors. The building is automated. The building received the energy efficiency class A, and we were using the air filter reactors. As you can see, we have the double facade. It was not merely for decoration purposes. It's an energy structure, power cut, that allows us to receive electric energy and heat. We also use the certification of the Union of the Architects. Then social principle. Here we is demonstrated in social involvement of people, the use of this building for the people. The first level is the exhibition hall, the library that's available and accessible for everyone. So thus this principle is being implemented here. Then the cultural principle. It's mainly about how this building fits into the environment in terms of, we can see the height that we didn't increase the number of levels that we used to have here. Then aesthetics. The aesthetics of this building is supposed to communicate the responsibility principles, responsibility. And here we talk not only about biosphere protection, by the way, but also about protection of noosphere that also requires our attention these days. So yes, I'm drawing to a close. So what kind of results do we have? Resource use efficiency, environment sustainability, healthy microclimate, social responsibility, involvement, cultural identity, etc. Thus, this building turns into a spot from which the green principles stem. So the rating system for certification, it was developed by the Union of the Architects and the Council on Green Construction. What the difference is between this system and other systems? We ask us the following questions when we use this system. What kind of objective we have? How do we design? How do we construct? How do we operate? How do we recycle? So we all of these questions are important for us and thereby complete. And thank you very much. Alexander, it was very interesting. Thank you very much. And we have Russian reality and we have European reality. I want to give floor to Jacqueline Gibson, who's going to tell us about the greenest palace of Europe.
How's that?
Where's the back button? Aha. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Lovely to be here. I hope you can follow along. Quite different, actually, to Alexander's presentation. We're talking about building design to be energy efficient buildings right from the outset. I'm responsible for managing the sustainability, energy efficiency, carbon management, carbon footprinting and reduction of a very old 300-year-old building. So this is renowned across the UK and around the world as Britain's greatest palace. It's the birthplace of Sir Winston Churchill and also shares ancestry with Princess Diana. So we get a lot of visitors here. It's become a visitor attraction, and with the UNESCO World Heritage classification since 1987, it means that we're very restricted. So a lot of things that Alexander touched on about fabric, insulation, we can't really do this on a very old 300-year-old building. So I'm just going to briefly talk about some of the challenges, how we've overcome those challenges, and some of the success stories of making a visitor attraction with 12,000 acres of parkland, green, sustainable and responsible. I did have a video here, but it's not able to play. But just to give you context, it's set in a rural area. As you can see, there's a mixture of forestry. We have 2,000 sheep on the estate, so living shepherds. It's a working... It's a private residence of the 12th Duke of Marlborough. So when we think about maybe just the people using the palace, it's not just about the visitors, but the staff, the residents. We also have our own bottling water plant. So I have a bottle of this is made from 80% recycled glass, and it's actually powered near our agricultural buildings. So on top of the sheds with the shepherds, we have solar panels. So actually this is meeting 60% of the energy demand. There's a lot of energy goes into bottling this, but it's actually from the estate 30 metres down. So we're just a real mix of industry. It's not just open from 9 to 5 Monday right through. It's actually open 364 days of the year. So our energy costs are something in the range of £1 million, even just for electricity alone. We have a number of events as well. So weekends, people are coming on board with generators. They're hooking into our energy supply. This puts a lot of demand. So we're looking at demand-side energy and energy storage on the estate and other parts where we can put in renewables. So we're engaged with Bogues, a French organisation, to look at a feasibility study on that. So again, just some of the challenges here, but we feel that there are a lot of opportunities. Very few palaces are even embracing sustainability. They don't really know how to go about doing this. There's a perception that, oh, it's an old building, of course it's going to waste energy. But actually, I want to be able to show, and at Blenheim Palace, we want to be able to show that we can make even old palaces green. And obviously here in Russia, that's a big factor as well with your existing building stock. We have a range of stakeholders, so it's not just about our visitors and our staff and our farmers, tenant farmers, but also it's the gentry, it's the Duke himself and the other investors, private investors. So it's keeping everybody happy. So sometimes that's very tricky, that people management and personality management and educating people on the need to embrace new ways of thinking. So I've been able to present to the Duke and the Board of Trustees. I've engaged 92% of all our staff in sustainability awareness to really help drive behavioural change every day while people are working in the palace and help them feel valued and help them feel proud to be working in a green palace. It's challenging, and new staff, seasonal staff for events, caterers. We had Donald Trump actually that came to the palace when he stayed at his when he visited the UK, and none of our waste contractors were used, none of our local catering contractors were used. We had to just hand it over. So the environmental impact of just 3 days of a big visit like that can be huge as well. So we're trying to manage that and put in codes of practice. So when people hire out the palace, there are certain codes to adhere to. So the big things for me are around carbon, waste, and water. So I don't know whether and I believe this can be Britain's greenest palace. We have the strapline, Britain's greatest palace. And actually the water, I'll just say, because I don't want to touch too much on it, but actually we recycle and reuse 50% of all the water on the estate. So this is reclaimed, it's treated on the estate, and this is the drinking, the bottled water here. It's very old Victorian pipework, so we do rely on two main water meters coming in. So we've engaged with the University of Oxford to come up with a software monitoring device. So taking manual reads, but trying to make it a bit more innovative, and it records those measures straight onto a platform, and then we can compare that with the main meter, and it never tallies. So it's going to be a big challenge. So my role really is thinking about, let's just try and reduce the water use in the outset. We can't have dual flush toilets in the palace. We have to have the full flush, 9 litres, because of the old Victorian systems. So again, a lot of awareness around that. So we are all familiar with the UN's definition of sustainability, but I believe that this idea of the one planet living that Marika will touch on, and really helping people at Blenheim understand that we can be a one planet palace and living within the means of our one shared planet. So this is working, a lot of success on this. We do have some renewables. We have hydro, and we're reaping about 30,000 euros worth of money every year on that. So there are financial savings. We have biomass boilers, and we have PV at the water bottling plant. We've introduced a way of managing our waste on the estate since March time, introduced a revolutionary way of, rather than inviting waste contractors onto the estate to take everything off, we're treating all our waste on the estate. So we had to ensure there was enough land, power supplies, we have compactors, and we're segregating our food and liquid waste, because obviously all the water systems go back into the lake. So we're keeping all, so not even milk can be poured down the drains. And that's all going to anaerobic digestion, so recovery energy from waste. We recycle glass, cardboard, plastics, and then the general waste. And the general waste, we're diverting 97% of our waste away from landfill. When I started, I've been in post 2 years. When I started, we were sending 23% off for recycling, and we're now achieving 97%. We've also introduced a procurement principle around buying everything within 30 kilometres. So this is quite challenging when we have big events and we have 5 Michelin star restaurants in the premises on the palace. So working with the Duke's butler to the cafes to ensure that the cake, for example, the flour is coming from 4 miles away, and the gifts we sell in our gift shop, and obviously trying to reduce plastic. So for example, we're trying to phase out plastic bags, and we're using a jute bag, but then ensuring that is from within 30 miles away. Was a bit of a challenge, and we did that. And another really good example actually of local sourcing is our honey that's produced on the estate. So with these products in our shop, we try to market and educate our visitors that this is being more sustainable, the sustainable ways of living, rather than just selling these things. So that marketing and information. We've also got a really aspirational goal within 10 years. So we sat down with the senior management and we decided that we want to become a net generator of renewable energy in 10 years. So by 2027, we want to reduce as much energy as we can, meet that with energy efficient. So for example, 3/4 of our lighting in the palace at the moment is LED lighting. But we want to then meet all that energy demand with renewables and export onto the grid and provide cheap, alternative, clean energy for our local communities in Oxford. So a very aspirational target. These were our 10 targets, and things like even trebling our impact on the local economy, doubling our charitable contribution. And it's not actually worded as a sustainability strategy. But it has all those key features of sustainability. So sometimes these strap lines around green or sustainability can sometimes confuse. So some of the successes, we've had policies now in place, they've been implemented, we're sharing this best practice, and coming here is wonderful as well to be able to share that, and making charters for our visitors to adhere to be green, educating young people, schools. This is Britain's oldest tree, 1,048 years old, so doing a lot of campaigning around carbon sequestration and the role of trees on the estate. And just some highlights, there are kind of waste reports that we send. So this idea of monitoring and targeting is very key, and sharing that within our senior management team. Signing up to other global campaigns like Zero Waste Week this week. And obviously reducing single-use plastics. This is kind of an idea of what our energy reports look like, and then we can correlate every visitor to a kilogram of CO2, which is 1.5 kilograms of CO2 per visitor. So we have on average 750,000 visitors a year, and we want to increase that to 1 million. Cycling, transport, the way people travel to the palace. We've signed up again to a number of initiatives. This is a very old electric vehicle. And so I believe it's about looking back into the past, learning, sharing, and actually embracing more forward ways of working. And these are our new electric vehicles that we've introduced across the palace. And again, more marketing and awareness around this. Okay, so as a result of that, we've achieved a green tourism standard, and some of the highlights there. And that's it. Electric
Wonderful.
vehicles and our award. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Да. К сожалению, каждая презентация очень...
Unfortunately, every presentation is very short. I'm sure we would hear we would listen for you to half an hour or 1 hour or more. But now we have to go to a different aspect, and let me give a floor to Marika Ramston from Bioregional Company, who will tell us about Eco School education.
And thank you for being here. Who's ready to move into the palace? See a raised hand. I'm definitely, that was really amazing. Thank you so much. That was really, really impressive. So, is my presentation up? Can we bring that up onto the screen? Wait 1 second.
1 second.
So in this time, I'd also like to thank the City of Moscow for inviting us here. And Guy, thank you so much. It's been amazing, my first time in Russia. And I've learned so much, as well as the Russians really know how to have a good time. So I hope to come back. It's been a very short visit, and I've come a long way, so I really hope I can come back soon. So I work for an organization called Bioregional. They are based just south of London, and they've created this One Planet Living movement. As Jacqueline was saying, if we were to live like the Europeans, if everybody in the entire world were to live like the Europeans, we would need the resources of 3 planet Earths. If we were to live like we do in North America, where I've come from, we would need the resources of 5 planet Earths. We all know that we don't have those other planets. And so Bioregional has really come up with guidelines to live within what this one planet can provide. It's a very simple way of understanding sustainability. Sustainability can be very complicated and complex, and people will argue till the cows come home, as we say in England, about sustainability. But you can't really argue with living within what this one planet provides unless you are hiding another livable planet somewhere and you haven't told us. So it's very easy for everybody to get on board with this concept of one planet living. Bioregional was tasked to build an eco-village just south of London. And they were looking at carbon and ecological footprint calculations and wanting to think about how the people living in this village could have a very low footprint. As they were doing this and doing the research, they kept on coming up with these 10 themes. They kept on reoccurring, and these 10 themes have become the 10 guiding principles for one planet living. So they're very holistic, everything from health and happiness to zero carbon energy, zero waste, travel and transportation, local and sustainable food, sustainable water, land and nature, culture and community, equity and local economy. I hope that helps those people that can't read English so well. So Bioregional's done a really good job in creating a common language and a common vision, telling this story that people can really jump on board with. So this vision, this movement is spreading across the world very rapidly. And now we have One Planet communities, One Planet companies, One Planet cities, and most recently, One Planet schools. And that's really what I've been spending most of my time and my energy. But if you're interested in learning more about the different communities, cities, or companies, you can go to oneplanetdigital.digital and learn a little bit more. If you see your country up there and don't know that you have a One Planet community, go visit and check it out. So I've been spending a lot of time in schools. I've done a lot of work with Education for Sustainable Development, and I really believe that we need to bring this into education and into schools today. We have to help to educate the next generation of leaders. And I found that this framework of One Planet Living really is engaging for the youth. They really take to it. It's really empowering for them to learn how they can make a difference in the world. So I've been working with a high school in California, just north of San Francisco, Credo High School. It's a public Waldorf school, tuition-free. It's now the largest Waldorf school in North America, the largest high school. And we've been working very hard to bring in the 10 principles into the taught curriculum, into the lessons that the students learn, into the way that the community, the school community runs events, brings in the wider community, educating them on One Planet Living. And also the events that the school puts on, we really try and think about each one of the principles. And then also the campus operations, thinking about how the building itself can really be a teacher for the students. So Credo High School is set in Somo Village. It's located in Somo Village, which is the first One Planet community in North America, also just north of San Francisco. You can see the solar panels on top. This is not a new building. They didn't build this as a One Planet community from scratch. It's been retrofitted to be as sustainable as possible. The other pictures, none of them are particularly new, but we really try and educate the students about how a building should operate, so that when the students graduate from high school, they think this is normal, and if it's not in the job places that they go into or the communities that they live in, they question and they try and make changes in those communities or in their new workplace. So we have lots of natural light. We have solar tubes in the roof to bring in natural light. We've knocked down some walls to bring more natural light. Dual flush, low flush toilets. Hydration stations to reduce the use of single-use plastic bottles. And we do a lot of work educating the students on how to separate their trash. So we have 4 bins, 10,000 pet worms, which we feed our compost to, the compost, landfill, and of course the recycling. The students have to sort through all of the trash and get really acquainted with, get really comfortable and cozy with the trash so they really understand what they're wasting. So students today hear around them a lot of stories, and they are often pretty scary. We're talking about climate change and all of the challenges that they're facing in their future. So I find it really important to give them the skills, the knowledge, and the experience to tackle and face those challenges, and do it in a really positive way. Sustainability can often be surrounded by a lot of doom and gloom, but if we engage the youth in these conversations, we've been talking the last few days about all the different goals that we have for 2020, for 2030, for 2050. We need this generation with the skills, the knowledge, and the experience to help us achieve those goals. As Nelson Mandela says, education is the most powerful weapon we have to change the world. So let's use it and make those changes and involve them in the discussion as they help us create their future. So if you are interested in bringing this to your country, to your school, please connect with me. I have many business cards, and I'd love to help you bring it to your school. It's just at the beginning, the infancy, but we are scaling very quickly, and I'd love to see if we can spread it throughout the world. I believe every school should be a One Planet school. So thank you so much.
Спасибо огромное. Я хотел...
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to give a floor for a short message to Sergei Monakov from the city of Tarusa, who works on the scheme. Yes, good afternoon. Tarusa is the first city in Russia, as we announced at the previous climate forum. And during this year, we've adopted a strategy of development which allows us moving in the right direction. And of course, we study global experience. And thanks to Guy Puran, we are now studying the methodics of work of this city, One Planet Living. This is an interesting theme, especially since we already had a number of sessions, and on the 5th, Marika visited our school, and children listened to her with interest, and they even had testing, and we found out that out of the 10 principles offered, we already use and live by many of those. So any experience of sustainable living, as we said for ourselves, Tarusa 2050 is going to be the city of sustainable development. We accept that, and we work in that sense. Okay, from Tarusa, let's move to the Russian Green Office with Yekaterina.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to welcome everyone
the moderators set me a practical task today. I should tell about ecologization of office spaces in Russia and of the fact that the green standards of construction and operation of buildings is realistic in the Russian conditions. It's practical and it's cost-saving and it's demanded. I will not speak much. We all understand that a building implies huge discharges and consumption of energy. The existing green standards for buildings are normally they normally work with the building directly. First, in the level of designing a building, in the process of construction, and in the period of its use. And we speak here mainly about engineering infrastructure. And in Russia, there is interest for that. The trend is growing. But what happens, in fact, according to the leading consulting agencies, during the period from 2017 to 2018, as forecasted, the introduction of commercial spaces is very small. So how do we make the existing commercial buildings more environmentally friendly? Normally they are split into offices, and mostly the offices are being hired or rented. Why do I even speak about offices? As you can see on this slide, it says use and a mandatory segment people, because a green office is a complex notion. We can often hear, yes, we have a green office, we collect waste paper and we have green plants. But in fact, this concept is as complex as the building, and we should work on every point here, from design to the processes of functioning of the company and procurement of the office. And if we speak here about green offices being a step towards a sustainable development of cities, we should also speak of people, and involvement of people is probably primary task. This is the motive of environmental education, because normally people who work in green offices start approaching the environmental questions more responsibly. They understand what is a separate waste collection, and of course environmental responsibility of business, and then the chain, green office, environment-friendly use, and people who are involved in it are real steps towards green city. Besides, there is still another point, namely marketing, laws of marketing. Demand draws proposal. Demand draws offer. So when people who work in offices, being citizens, they come to the existing markets with their demands, and they already have some understanding of ecology. They have already set demands. So you cannot really sell, let's say, an eco house, eco cottage, calling it eco just because it is built in the bank of the river. So we have to show more understanding. We speak about green schools, green buildings, understanding what is segregated waste collection, and the wish to participate in the recycling process. As I said, mainly green standards of construction work on such points as designing construction and use. But we also developed standards for offices, and that's the existing practice for which there is demand. There is demand, and we really check on that. So we work on such thing as eco-responsible procurement, because in order to provide for the office for 5,000 square meters, which is a middle size of office, normally they also work in other cities as well, having branches, and they have a lot of procurement from office appliances, stationery, and so on and so forth, logistics as well. Altogether, that creates a lot of emissions, and this is a theme for a separate workshop, actually. This also includes training of employees, the development of programs for preparing people for such processes as segregated waste collection, electric energy saving, which is very important too, because very often in those green buildings, even those which are certified green buildings of Moscow, which have a voluntary certificate of being environment friendly, there are garbage bins for separate collection of waste, but in fact inside they have everything mixed together, because this question was not explained to people. Besides a human factor for designing of engineering system, everything was designed perfectly, but the mode of use is such that all the effect is killed. So in my speech, I would like to emphasize especially the fact that people, employees, are a huge segment, a huge audience through which we can make steps for cities' sustainability. And the responsibility of business is also another leverage. Here I would like to show you some existing statistics on active interest for our project, which started in 2016. And you can see here the involvement of companies which attend our events. Oh, do I have 3 minutes left? Oh, I didn't even start speaking about practical examples. Okay, let me skip all this then. So there is demand, everything is great, we keep working, and we create the system of certification for offices where we work on all those concepts. And here are the figures which we get while making offices more environment friendly. As you see, we work not only with power consumption but also with water consumption. We can also cut costs on procurement, as well as costs for takeout of solid household waste. Besides, companies can also reduce their costs.
And many people do not know that simple multifunctional devices in the offices they consume electricity as well, and they result in minor CO2 emissions, but still it's emissions. So this is the largest slide in terms of numbers. 5,000 square meters, company, 500 employees, and we're working on environmental aspects with them. And that's the proof that green operation in Russia, well, it's possible, and it's applicable, and it's beneficial. Because if we take a look at the payback period column, then the longest payback period is when we convert to LEDs. But look at how much we save just by stopping using the one-time use plastic cups, etc., and buying eco paper. And if we switch to eco procurement, and if we switch to environment-friendly paper, it's beneficial. We save approximately 1 million rubles a year. So, eco construction materials and eco furniture, well, it's a separate subject, but I'll draw the line here. And it's possible to unify the interests of the business, society, and government. And we spend over 80% of time in these buildings, and the building is not just some real estate, but it's also people, and it's life, and it's offices that are there in the building. And we are for a complex approach towards this. And this is it. Thank you. Thank you, Katya. Very interesting. So from eco offices, we switch to eco hospitals and clinics, and we'll listen to the experience of foreign architects. So, Paolo, over to you.
Yeah, my presentation is going to come up in a minute. I'm just going to thank Guy for the invitation. Thank you to the City of Moscow for inviting us. It's really a pleasure to be here to share some of our experiences in providing sustainable facilities, buildings. My name is Palle Rasmussen. I'm an architect with KHR Architects in Copenhagen. And these are our offices at the seaside of Copenhagen. And as you can see, we are very concerned with global heating. We have hot boiling seawater right in front of our offices. So that takes up our mind. No, it's good to be back in Moscow. It's been a while since we've been here. We've done some work at the embassy a couple of years ago, but it's good to be back and see how the city is developing into a modern city, yet maintaining its cultural heritage. That's something that we all could learn from. I'm just going to tell you briefly about what we do and who we are, and then I'm going to give you some examples of sustainable buildings that we've done. So we're a full-service architectural company. We provide architectural services in all of the fields, and including sustainable design. And we draw upon an architectural tradition of the Nordic countries. As some of you would be familiar with famous Danish buildings around the world, like the Sydney Opera House and the La Défense in Paris and stuff like that. And that's the tradition that we draw upon. It's about clarity. It's about humanity. It's about purity. It's about functionalism. And along with that, also democracy and a human scale to architecture. So we like to design our buildings all the way from concept, the overall architectural concept, all the way down to the detail, to the last bolt of the building, Gesamtkunstwerk, as you might call it. That's what we like to do. We don't always get to do that, but we would love to do it. These are a few examples out of the jewelry box, some of the projects that we are most proud of. This is an office building, a headquarter of a contractor north of Copenhagen called Pihl & Søn, and we were lucky enough to get this building listed, even though it's only 25 years old. It's a very beautiful building. You should go and see it once. And then we did the design for the metro in Copenhagen, all of the deep underground stations on line 1. It's not as beautiful as the one here in Moscow, but as you can see, it draws upon a little bit of different tradition. It's the simplicity, it's the clarity, and again the functionalism that you see. And a special feature about these metro stations, is that they actually allow natural daylight to come in, even though it's 20 meters below ground. So we have skylights, and we simulate daylight in the building so that the passengers have a feel for the weather outside and the time of the day. And then we did also the headquarters of Bang & Olufsen. You're probably all familiar with the TVs and the radios produced by Bang & Olufsen, also within the same design tradition as our architecture. So we were lucky to have the chance to collaborate with them and design also a building that is in line with their design philosophy. So yet another one that's manufactured. That's a manufacturer of fiber composite materials, also in Denmark. So that's their headquarters and main facilities. They also produce building materials. So the cladding of the elevation is actually based upon their designs.
We're coming on to the hospital soon. Yes?
Yeah, we're coming on to the hospitals now. I'm going to show you 3 examples of hospitals that are all sustainable that we designed. It's the new University Hospital of Odense. It's built to the building regulation, and often that's enough to create a sustainable building. But clients are often more ambitious than that, so they also want to follow some of the certificates that they can get, either the BREEAM or the LEED, or as this one, the DGNB, which is actually the most used one, the one that we use the most in Denmark. So it's a major hospital of 250,000 square meters that we did the overall architectural concept for. Also, Bispebjerg Hospital we are designing right now, finalizing the detailed design. It's also a sustainable building, but designed only to the building regulation. And the third one is the Youth and Children's Hospital up in Norway, in Bergen, where the client also has ambitions further than the building regulation. It's designed to be a passive house and to best practice for the Nordic countries. So that's the hospital in Odense, and actually it's not a big thing to design a building that doesn't produce much, that has a low carbon footprint. If you look only at that aspect, it would then just be a very compact and dense building with very thick walls. But clients have, and we as architects has other ambitions than that. So all of what they all have in common, all the 3 projects that we've done, is that they draw upon the nature, the site that it's situated in. So for all of our projects, we also have a landscape concept, and actually for this building, it has sort of dominated and the overall concept of the building. Here it's the green forest on the south, and then the blue water element of the north that then melts together, and we let the nature pass through the buildings, through the long, slim buildings that you see on the slide. The blue element is also an environment to ensure the environment, so that we allow the rainwater that the building that hits the building to drain from the side. So we keep the rainwater on the side. We don't draw upon the sewage system of the surroundings. So that's a consequence of the climate changes that we see, that we now also have to design for heavy rainfalls. So here you can see a picture of the main entrance at the building, where you see that the nature is very present in all of the hospitals and all of the surroundings. No matter where you are in the building, you're always able to relate to the outside and to the nature, and the nature passes in through the building and becomes courtyards in the building. Another element of a sustainable way of living is that we have the super highway for bicycles passing also through the building. And we have public transportation, light rail, that stops right outside the hospital. So all together, it is able to obtain a DGNB Gold certificate. That's from the interior of the building, of the lobby. And another project we are doing, the Bispebjerg project, that's also the concept is also emerged from the way we handle the landscape. It's placed in a loop. All of the buildings are placed on a loop, a big circular hallway that connects all of the function underground, and then we put again on top of the basement the gardens, and on top of the garden we have all of the bedward buildings and small pavilions. So also here you are able to see how nature or relate to the nature whenever you are inside the building. This 2 minutes, okay. So I'm going to show the last project in the last 2 minutes. That's the hospital up in Bergen. Also, that one draws upon the nature. It's a more dramatic nature that they have in Norway. So it's situated on a hillside and have long, slim buildings like tangents sticking out from the mountain, and we're letting sort of the mountain grow on till the roofs, and introducing nature also in courtyards between the tangents. So I think I'm going to wrap it up with that. If you have any questions, or if you want to chat more about our projects, I'm here all afternoon, and I'd be happy to meet with you all to share our thoughts and ideas on sustainable architecture. Thank you.
So thank you very much, and now we move on in our magical green show to Russian green factories. I'd like to pass over to L'Oréal and Ilya.
Thank you. Всем добрый день. Несколько слов по...
Good afternoon. Just a couple of words from me. We commissioned it in 2011. The plant, the facilities located in the north of Volga region. We produce their shampoos, conditioners, and skincare products. Skin colors, natural colors, Garnier and other brands. We have approximately 200 employees there in L'Oréal. We have this program sharing with them down there, and it includes three key pillars that we focus. One of them is sustainable production. In 2016, we got lead is the energy efficiency monk. And for 3 years, we have been collaborating with various construction companies in order to become energy efficient. And in 2018, we received LEED Platinum certificate. So the key objectives for us was to reduce water use, greenhouse gases emissions, and waste. So what we achieved, if we compare 2011 and 2017, we reduced the emissions by 55%. We reduced the water use by 79%, and 63% go for waste. In order to achieve such results, and in order to get the Platinum LEED certificate, the latest certificate that we have, very stringent requirements, we implemented a systemic approach, and we used a lot of innovative technologies. So I split them into 4 media: fire, air, water, and land. And I'll share information on each of these technology groups. So, speaking of fire, it's energy efficiency, it's reduction of greenhouse gases emissions. The objective is to decrease the greenhouse gases emissions down to 0. We used a digital model of this plant to start on that, where you can see how it functions, how it operates. And we have installed one of the biggest solar systems for 500 kilowatts. We buy only energy from renewable energy sources. We have the boiler being designed right now, running on biomass, and the building is flexible in terms of the energy load that it requires. So this building is not yet For instance, the building is not yet built, but we can estimate many things. The next is water. So we used landscape that doesn't require irrigation. Then we used sanitary equipment that's sufficient. Then treatment facilities and looped water supply system. So we reuse water. And of course the metering system. I'll ask Vincent to share the information on treatment, system. So we recycle over 90% of our water. We have the reverse osmosis and we also have this. And we are very proud that today our water use objectives are met. Okay, the next group is air. In all the rooms you have fresh air supply that's treated, and the level of oxygen and CO2 is being monitored there. Also, there is a lot of natural light, a lot of light comes from outside, and also the employees can adjust the temperature, and we control the air quality. Here, and here we can see some pictures of the light. The plant was designed in such a way in order to ensure a lot of external light access with a lot of glass, and also by allowing the daylight access, we save on electricity use, and we use energy-saving lamps. And last group of technologies is land. The land has a very good infrastructure. It's within the industrial park, so it's in the industrial land plot. Also, we have the waste processing system, and we have separate waste collection, and we analyze the life cycle of materials. And landscape is also organized in a certain way to take into account people's comfort, and I think Vincent is going to tell us more about it. And also we have a cost-sharing principle implemented. Yeah, we have green areas, so when people take a break or take lunch, they can do some sports and they can have relaxation. Some meetings take place outside as well. And we were working as a team together with our consultants, with general contractors, etc. And we received LEED Platinum certificate, and we are very proud. We are working in Vorsin, a small village far from Moscow, and we got this certificate. And we are the only plant in the world, the only company in the world that received a LEED Platinum certificate that produces cosmetics.
Спасибо.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and you are indeed great. My congratulations. And let me give the floor to the microphone to the next speaker, who will tell us about Russian achievements in sports. We just had very big sports events. I think everybody saw those and took some part. Yes, dear colleagues, I was asked to say a few words about the World Championship, and I should say that a special standard was developed for the Russian football stadium, which was checked by FIFA very thoroughly and was approved by FIFA. And under that standard, 9 stadiums were approved where the major events, sports events, were held this summer. So I can say that there are reasons to pride ourselves on. And I can say that green standards indeed brought something new. So let us see let us look at some points. That's public transport accessibility. We got some bicycling lanes and bicycle parking lots. Since FIFA requirements were along the lit requirements, that implies also the use of rainwater, accounting of resources, energy equipment with low efficiency, LED lighting, almost 100% on all stadiums. If we use any mercury-containing items, that's to a minimum point. Green planting inside and outside, that was due to the application of green standards on those venues. Of course, a separate collection of waste. That's something which is very widely discussed in our country, and that's something we do need. Responsible use and utilization of our waste, that was also implemented. That's what Katerina told us, working with people. Some awareness programs was spread, which would encourage people to save water, to save power, to lead healthy lifestyle. There are, of course, drawbacks such as open power. There is some example in such charging stations were put, which worked on environmentally clean materials. But I would like to go back to the name, to the title of our section, that is Russia, Green Building Challenges. So the challenges which we are facing, and I would really like to thank the speakers. The venues are really beautiful, but we always forget that if we take a hospital, that's federal budget, and that implies certain norms on federal procurement. If we speak about technical potable water, we have an old regulatory base which does not allow us to use technical solutions. So the conclusions are that we have all technologies in the market, and they are used very actively in different venues. They are implementable. Resource-saving solutions have been introduced. Waste processing is being set up, and there are even businesses which grow on this, but alternative energy is not used properly. And today a lot of attention was given to the fact that it's time to go on the way of decarbonization in Russia. Energy modeling was used on some stadiums, but it was not used in the right to the right scale. So what are the challenges which we indeed see? First, a lot of people work in Russia in green building. We should join forces, and we should define clearly what green building actually is, what are the advantages, and put all this not only in the federal base, but in government decrees, in federal laws. Make this effort. Still another effort which must be made is the fact that green building pertains to different ministries. And this event goes under the auspice of under the auspices of the Department of the Use of Natural Resources, but we're speaking about construction, about building. Besides, since we build using finance, we need to involve the Ministry for Economic Development, and since this touches upon people's health, that means the Ministry of Health, and since we need power, that's the Ministry of Energy. So it's a global problem to connect those masters within our legislation and make a green building in Russia a reality. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and our last speaker with a short speech, that's a look at the future, how all these technologies can be united and how it can be shown to the Muscovites.
Хотел бы поблагодарить Москву, департамент.
I'd like to show Moscow the Department of the Use of Natural Resources and organizers and moderators of our event for such a wonderful opportunity to communicate in such a good company. Let me announce it briefly. Very soon the Center of Green Technology Integration will be opened. Let me say a few words about it. Through systems which are shown on this slide, inter-industrial interaction with the aim of creating new standards of residential construction. Briefly, this is where it is. So far, this is a project. The look is going to be slightly different. This is the Moscow region, 15 kilometers up the Dmitrovskaya highway. Where is the idea? Where the idea comes from? It comes from the market. There is demand, and of course there are consumers who do not really understand which technologies are there, which can be used. These are developers. It's developers who understand, especially in recent couple of years, that changes are necessary, and they are looking for such technologies, trying to apply them, but there are no clear-cut criteria, no standards of application. There are also manufacturers who have all the technologies and large assortment and some experience, but they do not have ready technological or business chains. We can put here a platform for communication and business communities, because this platform is created for the community itself. We wanted to gather very many clever people in one place, constructors, designers, manufacturers, in order to develop today's situation. The research center and the demonstrational space is offered for these particular goals, so that this community could carry out studies and demonstrate these technologies and educate. The partnership, which was started during design of this building, will not end at all, as we assume. This is going to be ongoing work, constant, continuous work on the improvement on the normative and technical documentation, on the new projects of a house, of a quarter, from quarters to cities. Briefly about R&D, that's optimization of costs, joint development of digital solutions and products and building joint processes. I will skip through the presentation quickly, but it will be available on the website of the organizers. This is an educational program. We will continuously study how to make better buildings, carbon-neutral buildings, low carbon buildings, how to build healthy houses. But this is not restricted to just these themes. We will train on people, yes. From time to time, from the very beginning, a family will be put in the house, and we will use different meters and sensors measuring not only air, but the emission of CO2, but also meters for people showing the level of satisfaction. and the impact on people, because this entire work is directed on the improvement of people's lives. And definitely this is going to be the biggest catalog, because this will not only include the used technologies, but the work will also be based on the continuous monitoring. Today we already have 55 manufacturers and 80 startups from Skolkovo, and we do hope that we will make a huge database on the use of green technologies. I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Dmitry. This is a great project, and this is something we really need. And the closing word I would like to give to Jan.
How do you react to today's presentations? 3 minutes.
Yes, I will only have 3 minutes because I have a lecture on at 2:30. That's in 3 minutes. I would like to thank all the speakers here because I've learned a lot, and I'm very impressed to hear the status of the ability to make really nice improvements to the climate and to the resources with green buildings. I think it's a remarkable development. I decided to have a quote here. It's from a colleague of mine, but I think he has it from somebody else. He would say, "Do not ask what the city can do for your building. Always ask what your building can do for the city." And now I've widened it and say, do not ask only what you can do for the climate, but also ask what you can do for the city. And with this, a city can be full of absolutely green buildings and still be very black. I saw in Malaysia a project, fantastically green, 5 layers of car park underneath. And I asked, what is that underneath? That's the car park. Why is that there? Because we could not get to the building without having all this car park. So we have this challenge that we shall work holistically with the buildings, with the interface between the buildings and the surroundings, and with the cities, which are, of course, a major challenge. I would say it's much easier to make a green building than make a green city, but we'll have to do both. And I've been very inspired, and also especially inspired by the examples we've heard about holistic approaches, not only to regulate the indoor climate and have solar on the roof, but also to buy the stuff locally and drink the water locally and all these things, which are all part of the package. Never ask only what you can do for the climate, also ask what you can do for the environment and the city. Thank you very much.
Закроем уже наши сессии. Спасибо всем.
Okay, thank you. Let's close our session. I thank everyone. I thank all the speakers.